Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Live and Learn podcast. We're doing well on this Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. The last day of September. What a beautiful month it's been. And we have a lot to get into tonight, recapping Monday Night Football. We're going to preview the NHL Metropolitan and Atlantic divisions. We're going to talk about baseball so far today, beginning of the Wildcard round. So that is all forthcoming on the show today. Please like, subscribe, give us a follow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Leave us a rating and review. Leave a comment. Anything you want covered on the show, we will get to it. A week from tonight is the start of the NHL season. So a week from tonight, we will do kind of a prediction show for the year. Stanley Cup playoff teams in the Eastern and Western Conference, as well as react live to a few games that will be ongoing with the Blackhawks playing the Panthers opening. We're going to talk Florida today when we get into the Atlantic Division. So that is all forthcoming. But let's start today with football. Monday Night Football last night. First off, I went to the movies last night, watched one battle after another. I like going to the movies personally. They got really good chairs now. They're comfortable. And I love movies. Movies mean a lot to me. They are a huge part of my life. I love just consuming content, good content. And I've probably been to 6 or 7 movies this year. And I'm going to go to a bunch more because you got the Smashing Machine that I want to see. And you got the Black Phone 2, which looks like a scary movie. The first one was awesome with Ethan Hawke. If you haven't seen that, go see it or stream it, I mean. But saw one battle after another. One of the best movies. I think it's the second best movie of this decade. I still put Oppenheimer number 1 because to me Oppenheimer was a perfect movie. One battle after was great. The Fabelmans is another movie that I loved. One of my favorites from the last 5 years. But go see this movie. It's well done. Leonardo DiCaprio, Sean Penn. What a performance from Sean Penn, who's people forget because he's kind of had a crazy life. But I Am Sam, great movie, great performance. I think he's going to win an Oscar for this performance. Sean Penn, we'll see, as Colonel Lockjaw. But I watched the movie, come home, and start watching Jets-Dolphins in Miami. We had Miami -2.5 at home. That did cover. The result is really irrelevant because the Jets are 0-4, the Dolphins are 1-3, and I don't think either team is going to do anything this year. I think both teams are going to struggle down the stretch and going to be a non-factor. They'll finish 3rd and 4th in the AFC East. However, the development during the game was the injury to Tyreek Hill. And this has multiple ramifications. This has multiple interesting tidbits. You see the play, and watching the review, it's pretty grotesque. You knew instantly it was something very serious, disgusting images, and we found out that Tyreek Hill dislocated his knee, but also on the play, he tore his ACL, MCL, and may have also tore his LCL. Soon to be 32 years old. Great player. In the headlines for a lot of different reasons, but he is one of the most unique, one of the best receivers of his generation. So fast, can take the top off the defense. But first off, it hurts the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins aren't any good, because he gives them a better chance to win with the team that they currently have. Now, him being gone hurts the team, and the over-under 7.5 before the season started is likely to hit even less. And I don't think it had a chance of hitting the Dolphins getting to 8 wins with Tyreek Hill. Their defense is the second worst in football behind only Baltimore, and their offense doesn't give you that much confidence either. Tua being the quarterback that nobody, probably including Tua's parents, trust. But my bigger thought was, well, no Tyreek Hill to trade. No Tyreek Hill that could have been shipped back to the Kansas City Chiefs where he won a Super Bowl, where he had the best years of his career. They need receiver help. He could really, give them a benefit. So that's not going to happen. But also, maybe it's not Kansas. Maybe it's Baltimore, another team that could have used his services. Now Miami cannot trade him, and he's due $27 million again next year with a very large cap hit. That's going to be difficult to move. And the way it sounds, he may not play next year. Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, says the goal is to be ready starting next year. Sure. Great goal. Love the enthusiasm. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Difficult sport, difficult thing to ponder. But we'll see. I wish him well. He's a fun player. He's become polarizing with Dolphins fans because of his attitude, because he used to be a captain of the team, got stripped of the captaincy this year. Threw a lot of fits on the sideline, didn't seem to get along with his quarterback that well anymore. But it's a gnarly injury. We've seen it, back-to-back days. Malik Neighbors tears his ACL at MetLife Stadium, which takes people's knees. Took Odell Beckham Jr.'s. Take Malik Neighbors. Tore Aaron Rodgers' Achilles on that same turf. And we get Tyreek Hill in Miami. And now you look at Jalen Waddle. You look at Darren Waller, who came out of retirement, caught 2 touchdown passes last night. Good for him. Awesome story for him to come back and have a night. How many of those nights he has, TBD. But a great story. Great toe tap touchdown for the Dolphins. But Jalen Waddle, Darren Waller, Achane, Malik Washington, guys are going to have to step up. Tyreek Hill was good for 4 or 5 catches a game. And you know what he can give you. You're now relying on unknowns to prove that they can produce for you, which the Dolphins don't know. But both these Dolphins-Jets both teams are train wrecks. Jets are now 0-4. Couldn't stop anybody. Justin Fields played pretty well last night, considering. 84 yards rushing, 43-yard touchdown run on a 4th down. Threw a beautiful ball for a touchdown to Garrett Wilson late in the game, but the Jets lose. Jets are going to be a bottom 3 team in the NFL. 0-4, and they go to Dallas, and they're an underdog in that game. They're going to be underdog in pretty well every game they play the rest of the year, regardless of who's in at quarterback, regardless of their roster. Braylon Allen, their running back, has a MCL sprain. He's going to miss at least the next 4 games. So they're hurting. Aaron Glenn's already fed up with the team. Probably a 4-win team. 4, maybe, if you can get to 4 or 5 wins. Crazy thing, Dolphins are playing Carolina, and they're not the favorite. It's in Carolina, but Vegas wants me to bet on the Dolphins, and I'm probably going to. I'm out of my mind, but Carolina stinks. Stinks. For being week 5, there are a lot of bad teams in the NFL already. The Tennessee Titans stink. And Brian Callahan got like 4-year deal. He's in his second year. That's the only reason he hasn't been fired. The Jets suck. The Saints, we knew this, suck. The Dolphins stink. The Houston Texans might stink. The Baltimore Ravens stink. Their defense is worse than Miami's. They're giving up 33 points per game. The Ravens, worst in the NFL. And it sounds like Lamar's not going to play this week against Houston, which means Cooper Rush, the former Dallas Cowboys backup, will be their starter. And quick segue, another bad team, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals, who lost 28-3 last night in Denver, they scored the first 3 points and then gave up 28 unanswered. Jake Browning got pressured on 33% of his dropbacks, was horrible against the blitz. Cincinnati took 11 penalties. Jamar Chase was pissed. This team is going nowhere. They got Detroit and then Green Bay before a bye week. They're 2-2 somehow. Joe Burrow scheduled to be back in December. If they're out of it by then, I don't give a shit. They're not going to be a playoff team. But the AFC North has the 1-3 Browns, the 2-2 Bengals, the 1-3 Ravens, and the always consistent 3-1 Steelers, led by 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers might be a playoff team again, somehow. Mike Tomlin doing his thing in this AFC North. That's gone to complete hell. It's the Bizarro Jerry, if you're a Seinfeld fan, division. What the hell is happening? We knew the Browns suck. Nobody's shocked about that. But the Bengals were a complete joke last night. I went to bed in the third quarter because I said, why am I staying up for this? I'm tired as hell. Watching a lot of sports, staying up late, doing my thing, watching movies. I'm gassed. I'm not staying up for Bengals Broncos in Denver. Brutal. The Bengals, I would look at a quarterback upgrade. I hear a lot of, my mentor, my idol, Dan Patrick, always saying, trade for Russell. I'd rather trade for Jameis Winston. Both guys are on the Giants. I think Jameis Winston's a better quarterback right now than Russell Wilson is. He'd throw the ball down the field, give those receivers a chance to make plays. Something they really haven't done since Joe Burrow went down. We'll see. But from 2-0 to 2-2, and now you get two powerhouse teams in the NFC. Cincinnati's a 9.5-point dog against Detroit this upcoming weekend. 9.5. One of the biggest dogs of the week. And we'll look at the betting lines for Week 5 games Thursday, which includes the Thursday nighter between San Francisco and the Rams, where Brock Purdy, not a guarantee he's going to play. Toe injury still bothering him. He got banged up quite a bit against Jacksonville on Sunday. I consider sitting him because they're not going to win that game regardless, because the Rams are a damn good football. Their only loss this year is to the Eagles. And the Eagles have won 20 of their last 21 games. Eagles don't lose, period. But we'll see. Thoughts and prayers to Tyreek Hill. Hopefully he can come back. Dolphins fans are not thinking about his health today. I can guarantee you that. It's not poor guy. We can't get rid of him, and he's eating away our salary cap, and our quarterback has to be paid a shit ton of money. So they're not going to be able to cut this. Dolphins team's going to be bad for a minute. So buckle up, people. But at least you live in Miami. Now, if you're a Dolphins fan, you live in New Brunswick, and you got shitty winter coming, well, that's a drag, gotta say. Okay, let's pivot to the NHL. We're going to get to the Metropolitan Atlantic preview. Before we do that, big news today in the NHL. This program, if I get something wrong, we revisit it. If I get it right, we'll talk about it. But I will admit when I'm wrong. I said about 3 weeks ago, after I learned that Kirill the Thrill Kaprizov turned down an 8-year, $16 million a year contract from Minnesota, that I said this player is going to be traded this season, and his time is up in Minnesota. Great player, was on, I think he was number 8 on TSN's top 50 players. But if he's not going to accept $16 million over 8 years, $126 million, get rid of him. Trade him, you have to. You can't lose him for nothing. But then this morning, I see it pop up on my phone. I get a notification. Kirill Kaprizov has signed an 8-year, $136 million extension to remain a part of the Minnesota Wild. $17 million per season. He is now the highest paid player in NHL history. Kirill is 28 years old. $16 million, not enough. $17 million is, evidently. Okay. Is Kaprizov a really good player? Yes. No doubt about it. One of the most talented players in the league. He is the best player on a Minnesota Wild team that up front doesn't have many elite talents. I think their back end is superb. Zeev Byam, Brock Faber, Spurgeon, still a good player even at his age. Minnesota's got a good back end for a decade to come if they play it correctly. So I'm cool with that. But you look up front, they got a bunch of grit grinders. Marcus Foligno, you love him. But I mean, he's a fourth-line player. And I think Matthew Boldy is a really good player. He's a 30-goal scorer routinely to me. He'll only get better. Boston College product. I loved him when he was young. He jumped into the league at 19, and he's been a stud ever since. Joel Eriksson X, a good player. Matt Zuccarello, the ageless wonder, still great. But those guys are not elite talents. Kaprizov is. And when you are in a market like Minnesota and you have a superstar player, you are petrified that you are going to lose that superstar player because they see shiny objects. We know about Russians. They typically like New York. They like Florida. Minnesota is not New York or Florida. We know that it's cold as shit, a lot of snow, and it's a hockey town. Great hockey town. They're hosting the World Junior Hockey Championships this year. Twin Cities, shout out. But not a desirable location. Nobody is picking a trip to go to Minnesota. If you are, you're a liar. But good hockey market overall. Good sports market, I would say, overall. The Minnesota Wild, and I like Bill Guerin. I think he's built good teams with everything that we talked about, Parise, Suter, those deals that have basically put handcuffs around his wrists. To me, this is such a weak, stupid contract for the Minnesota Wild. You offered the guy 16, and he said no. $1 million more, he says yes. I realize the cap's going up, but if we look this summer, Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen, or this summer / last year, Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen signed for $12 million. I think you can make a strong argument both of those guys are better than Kirill Kaprizov. Now, TSN would tell you otherwise, but I would just say Rantanen's teams have, won a Stanley Cup, gone deep in the playoffs. He scored in 6 straight playoff games just last year. He's a force. He throws checks. He stays healthy. Kirill Kaprizov hasn't played a full 82 ever in his career. He missed half the season last year. But they had to keep him because you can't keep stars in Minnesota. He's $5 million better than those guys? No. I'm not sure Connor McDavid's going to get $17 million on his contract. Whether that's in Edmonton or that's elsewhere. Minnesota is a playoff team bi-yearly. Back and forth, usually yes 1 year, no the next. They are a fringe playoff team this year for me. If it takes $17 million to keep a player, I'd trade him for a bunch of stuff. And you do it in the middle of the year so that you're not Toronto and you have to trade him for Nick Wall. Maybe you do a sign and trade, but you do it in January and you get a bunch of shit, draft picks, players, whatever it might be. I like the player. I do. But I don't like him for $17 million over 8 years. And he's a guy that's constantly injured and I don't think really is dedicated to the team. So if we look at this, 55 first year, 81, 67, 75, 41. That's it. Played half the games last year. Had a great year, 56 points in 41 games, 9 points in 6. He's a great player. Great player. But availability matters. He's small. And I'm just not doing it. Let another team pony up. I don't think there's another team in the league that is giving Kirill Kaprizov $17 million. And you could think, some bad teams do it. Columbus is not giving that guy $17 million. No chance. They're not doing it for payroll reasons, but they're also not doing it because it's stupid. Good teams aren't. Toronto's not doing that. Florida ain't doing that. Tampa. Because it goes against their cap structure, and they also know this guy isn't worth $17 million. I like to build a team. I'm not building a one player with a bunch of stiffs, which is what Minnesota is effectively telling all of us. Come see this attraction and a bunch of bums next to him. A bunch of good defensemen who I like. I like the player, but I wouldn't have done this contract. I think it's a huge mistake. I think it's if it's two options, we can keep him for 17 or trade him. I'm trading. And he doesn't have trade protections, so you could have traded him anywhere for a pile of stuff. Or said, hey, Kirill, you selfish fuck, we are getting rid of you. Where do you want to go? We'll do a sign and trade. You can get your number, 17, whatever it might be, and then get the hell out of here. Bill Guerin in the Minnesota Wild said, whatever you want. He said no to 16. But he says yes to 17. Highest paid player in the league by a wide margin. He makes $4 million more than Austin Matthews. And also, I'm not Austin Matthews' biggest super fan because I think he sucks in the big moments. But is Kirill Kaprizov better than Austin Matthews? No. Is he $4 million better than Leon Draisaitl? No. Hell no. Is he better than Connor McDavid? No. And I get next man up, but you see the NFL, they do it. Doesn't mean it works. The Cowboys paid Dak more than everybody else, and they suck. Partly because of that contract. Giants paid Danny Dimes a bunch of money for doing nothing. It held them back for years, still is. So just because, we have to keep this guy. No, you don't. You run the organization, not the player. Kirill Kaprizov would have got a good chunk of change wherever he went. But gun to my head, there's no way he gets $17 million from any other team in the NHL. No way. I could be wrong. I don't think he gets 16 from any other team in the NHL. Any team that's serious about winning couldn't justify it. Because you're not going to win. Minnesota's not going to win. Good luck. Other news today, they had to drop the good news. And then they dropped Matt Zuccarello will miss 2 months with a lower body injury. Sounds like he needs surgery, so he's going to be out until December. That hurts them because, yes, he's in at 38, but he's still one of their best forwards. He plays on a line with Kaprizov. So not the best news for the Minnesota Wild after good news. And also Max Pacioretty has called it a career, announced his retirement today. 36 years old, played with the Leafs obviously last year. He's now working as a team assistant with the University of Michigan. So hell of a career, played hard for the Leafs last year, became kind of a fan favorite after being a much maligned captain in Montreal, where they kind of grew to hate him, and he pivoted his style, was a physical force for the Maple Leafs, but takes a job with Michigan, and good career, good player, good on Max Pacioretty. Always liked the way he played the game. And I thought the way they treated him in Montreal was kind of bullshit towards the end there. That's Montreal for you. Okay. Let's get to our division previews. We're going to start with the Metropolitan Division, then we'll head over to the Atlantic. The Metro. Last year, the Metro had the perception, let's say that, of being a bad division. And that proved true. With Florida dusting Carolina in 5 games in the conference final and just a bunch of teams that didn't really do much. With the new playoff format, you're guaranteed to get a Metropolitan Division team into the conference final, so it benefits a certain team that we'll get to in a little bit. I believe the perception of last year is very much still the perception of this year. Because going through this exercise, there are not many good teams in the Metropolitan Division. And I want to start with an interesting team to me, not because I think they're going to be any good, but I think they'll be closely watched the entire year. And we're starting with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh didn't make the playoffs again last year. Can say they want to be competitive, but I think it's a bunch of hooey. Pittsburgh still has Sidney Crosby, one of the best players of all time. Still have Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin on their roster. Malkin, Letang heading into their last years. Crosby has 2 years left on his contract. 38 years old, said at the team golf tournament start of the year that if you're not in the game to be competitive, not in the game to try to win, he doesn't want to be on that team, doesn't want to be in that environment. Well, to me, that goes against everything Kyle Dubas wants to do, because the team they have now will never win, will never be competitive, and they need to get draft picks, and they need to get players that are going to be good in the future. Now, Sidney Crosby will control his destiny, will control his future. If and when he leaves the Pittsburgh Penguins, I'm still not sold on that he will. But there's a certain injury to a guy in Florida that we'll get to, named Sasha Barkov. He'd be a perfect fit. Evgeny Malkin would be a really good fit. That could be a trade in a number of months that makes sense. I don't think there's a chance in hell the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to re-sign Evgeny Malkin. If they do, fire Kyle Dubas. It makes no sense. It's organizational malpractice. Not because Evgeny Malkin sucks. He's not what he used to be. But if this team's going to get better, you can't just bring on senior citizens because they played there for a long time. It's not a strategy that works. It's a stupid strategy, quite frankly, and it sets your organization back decades. Just ask the Chicago Blackhawks, who still suck. I love nostalgia as much as the next guy. I listen to 70s and 80s music. I think the music of today sucks compared to listening to The Who or Fleetwood Mac or the Tragically Hip. Bad Bunny doing the Super Bowl. Who gives a fuck? I couldn't name you one of his songs. However, these bands can't play anymore. They're not going to sell at stadiums because most of the people in the bands are dead. Rest in power. So you got to adapt. You have to move forward. Looking at Pittsburgh this year, they lose Nedeljkovic and Connor Timmins, minor losses. Add Matthew Dumba on the back end. Connor Clifton comes over from Buffalo. Crosby, Nola Chari, Connor Dewar comes over from Toronto. Robbie Fabry gets added. You got Tommy Novak, Philip Tomasino, Danton Heinen, Matt Nieto, Rutger McGroarty, Anthony Mantha. Okay players. No doubt about it. Owen Pickering is, I think, a guy that very well could make the team on the back end, could be good. Future of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But Letang's 36, Carlson's 35, Dumba's 34, Crosby's 38, Malkin's 39, I believe. Russ is in his mid-30s. It's an old team that just... They got three goalies, Jaris, Artur Shilovs, who they got from Vancouver, and Joel Blomqvist. All three confidence level, the shakies, to say the least. Don't trust the team. Don't know what it's going to give you. Ryan Graves, I like Ryan Graves, but he had an awful season last year. Looks like an awful contract signing. And I want him to be a better contract signing because he's a Maritimer and I like him. But this team is not interesting for any reason. They're playing on opening night against another team I don't find that interesting or that good, and we'll get to them. But you got... this team's not a playoff team. They're not a good team. They're not going to be in the mix. But how many of these guys stay there throughout the year? Does Crosby want to be a one-team player? I don't think it hurts a legacy at all, to leave a place. Did it hurt Brad Marchand's? Didn't for me. Won a cup and got a really awesome contract that he never would have gotten from the Boston Bruins. That's called smarts. If somebody hates that, then they're stupid. I don't want to be on their team. I don't want to be in the foxhole with them because they lack intelligence. They grew up in Ontario. So Pittsburgh, no chance. No, not interesting. Old, slow, please. All right, let's move over to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Considering the division, I think Columbus can be a frisky playoff team. They had a ton of injuries last year that hurt them. And they had shaky goaltending, to say the least, and I still don't love their goaltending. But I think Columbus has talent. Adam Fantilli had a really good sophomore year, and I think he will continue to get better. He can deliver. He's a good player. Boone Jenner basically missed all of last season, captain of the team, heartbeat, plays hard, produces. He's returning. Kent Johnson, in the doghouse, out of the doghouse, good player. Isaac Lundestrom comes over from Anaheim, big center. Marchenko, goals, Matthew Olivier, career year, love him. Monahan, Voronkov, not bad. Dante Fabro, they re-signed. Denton Mateychuk, I think could be an NHLer right away. Ivan Provorov, Werenski, one of the better defensemen in the league. And they also added Charlie Coyle, who got dealt from Colorado to Columbus. They don't have an alpha dog up front. I think Marchenko has the potential to be 40-plus goals for a decade in the NHL because he's got that good of a shot, a great release. And, Fantilli could be the guy to tee him up for a long time to come. I think their back end is strong. I think they have a lot of guys that can move the puck efficiently. Fabro, Mateychuk, Provorov, Werenski. Merzlikins in the last year of his deal, he very well could be traded this season, but he very well could have been traded for 3 years. He's kind of John Gibson 2.0 in Columbus. On paper, are they great? No. But we're going to get through this Metro. In this division, they can compete. They can be a playoff team if things go well. Will they? We'll talk about that more next week. I don't hate their team. And actually, I think they're a fun team to watch at the very least. Much more fun to watch than Pittsburgh. No debate. I love Crosby, but Pittsburgh's that's a fucking chore. Okay. New York Islanders. Okay. Patrick Waugh, still the head coach. Thought maybe he'd leave. Still there. Got rid of Sweet Lou. So Sweet Lou gone from the game as of now. They trade Noah Dobson to the Montreal Canadiens on draft day. And they got Cal Ritchie in the Brock Nelson trade. I like Cal Ritchie. One of the better prospects, that wasn't in the NHL. Good deal. Re-signed Kyle Palmieri. It's still an older team. Anders Lee's been in Long Island for 8 years. Engvall, this is now his third full year. Duclair, Drouin comes over. Palmieri, Pajot, Bo Horvat, Casey Zizekas, Matthew Barzal. It's not a bad group. And the way they play hockey, they can be competitive. Because they know who they are, and they also, sensing a formula here, they play in this division. They might be interesting early on because they have Matthew Schaefer, who went number 1 overall in the 2025 draft. Has already looked really good in training camps, going to make the team out of camp. And you see him with Tony DeAngelo, Scott Mayfield, Ryan Pollock, Adam Pelech, Romanov. All 5 of those defensemen were on the team last year. So you have 5 returnings plus Schaefer. Varlamov, Sorokin, same goaltenders. So like I said, it's a very similar team just without Lou Lamoriello. Without Lou, can Patrick Waugh coach different? Can he get more out of this team? They need to score more goals, period. They need to be more aggressive. Are the Islanders better than the Penguins? I think so. Are they better than Columbus? Structurally, they're probably a better team. They're a little more mature. I like Sorokin more than, and he had a really bad season last year. I think he can rebound. I think he can play well, given the opportunity, which he will this year, I believe, from Patrick Waugh, at least initially, with Varlamov being injured to start the season. Islanders are going to forecheck. They're going to play good defensively. They're going to try to win 2-1 because that hasn't really changed. We'll see if it does, but I don't think it will. Not a flashy team. Nobody is dying. If there's an NHL red zone, nobody's dying to have the New York Islanders on the television. But they still have some good Barzal's a good player. Bo Horvat's still a solid player. Schaefer's going to be good. Cal Ritchie, to me, can be productive right away. Anders Lee, sure, getting up there in age, still a good NHL player. We'll see. Islanders better than Pittsburgh right there with Columbus. Philadelphia. Philadelphia fired Torts late in the year, if you remember. And Rick Tocchet decided not to stay in Vancouver. Adam Foote got his job, and he's now the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. My initial thought is Rick Tocchet has no hair, and he might just lose his scalp because I think he's going to hate this team. And this team, I'll just be honest, this Flyers team sucks. This Flyers team, I think, will be picking in the top 5 of the 2026 NHL draft. And that should be happening. That's by design. This team needs a lot of help. Because I look at it and I go, traded for Trevor Zegras. I don't think that's a Rick Tocchet player. I think those two might clash a little bit. I could be wrong, but I don't think I will. Sean Couturier, Bathurst, New Brunswick, great, love him, but getting into that back 9 portion of his career, never was a great skater. Will be 33 in December. 45 points last year in 79 games. Not great. Did go up, but you look 41, 17, 38, 45. Not, and he's one of the better center icemen on this team. Christian Dvorak comes over from Montreal, has never been a favorite of mine. Montreal's trying to get better. That tells me Philly took a player. Montreal was like, you know what? We can get rid of him. We're okay losing Christian Dvorak. It's okay with us. Bobby Brink, Nick Delorier, one of the toughest SOBs in hockey, like him. Garnet Hathaway, like him. My boy, Matvei Michkov, year 2. Should have been rookie of the year. JK, Lane Hudson was pretty good. But Michkov, good player, but I worry about him having a bad second season because I just look at this team and I go, who's he going to be on a line with? How's he going to be productive? I love Konechny, but Konechny is, again, a player on this team that can produce, play in all areas, could be a trade candidate by the end of the year for a good team looking to win. We shall see. Drysdale on the back end, Emil Andrae, Swedish defenseman, Ristolainen, Sanheim, who'll be playing hard a year trying to make the Olympic team. Nick Seeler, Cam York. To me, Philly's one of the worst teams in the league. And there's some crap in this division. I think Philly is going to finish last in the Metropolitan Division because they're not. They're not a good team. Just straight up. But we'll see. Okay. I now want to talk about a team that I think's got a lot of good pub that I don't get. I think this team is a fraud team that's not going to be a playoff team, that I think a lot of people think are going to be a playoff team. They got changed. Things going to go so well. Okay. And that fraud team to me in the Metropolitan Division is the New York Rangers. I hear people, oh my God, the Rangers. Yeah. Oh my God. I watched them last year. It was scary. Trouba's finally gone, but that whole saga was played so horribly by Chris Drury. Then there was the Kreider drama, and he's in Anaheim now as well. You then trade K'Andre Miller, sign and trade to your rival, the Carolina Hurricanes, who are better than you. Interesting tactic, Cotton. We'll see if it plays out for them. Who's young and had his ups and downs, but I think he can turn it around. He'll never be a perfect player, but who is? But could he be a 40-point-a-year defenseman? I think so. They then fired Peter Laviolette and replaced him with Mike Sullivan, who got fired in Pittsburgh. And you go, okay, Mike Sullivan, Stanley Cup. I get a good coach, had a lot of success coaching the United States at the Olympics. Love it all. But in saying all that, I just don't think the team's very good. Artemi Panarin enters a contract year, so that could be the thought being maybe this is the year Artemi Panarin gives you an effort that anyone could be proud in. And I am probably the least. I dislike this guy more than pretty much anybody else in media because I think he's one of the more overrated players in the league. The bread man. He's the laziest He's the laziest superstar in hockey. He will be 34 October 30th, so exactly a month from today. He plays a lot of games. I know why, because he doesn't sweat, put himself in a position to get hurt. 89 points in 80 games last year, but 12 goals less. Then he had 120 to 89. Woof. So not great. I don't trust the guy whatsoever. So maybe contract year, maybe he'll play better. We'll see. JT Miller comes in, now the captain of the team after the debacle in Vancouver. I actually like that decision because I think JT Miller is a competitor and I think he will get more out of the team for sure. And they have guys that I think could have great years and still might, and the team might not be any good. Will Cooley's a really good player. To me, he's a 25-goal scorer, power forward every day of the week. I like him a lot. Gabe Perreault, young American. I don't know if he'll make the team out of camp. Probably should. But the kid can score. He was a great collegiate player. I like him. Lafreniere, bad season. Apparently they're going to give him lots of runway. Mike Sullivan's going to give him every opportunity for him to become a really good player. Remains to be seen. Then you have Mika Zibanejad, who another older player that his production's going down. His age is going up. Typically, those don't reverse. Trocheck, Rempe, Edstrom, Carrick. Their bottom six guys, I don't have a whole lot of trust in. Will Borgen, DeHaan, Adam Fox, Gavrikov, who they gave a pile of money to, Braden Schneider, Carson Soucy. I don't think anybody outside of Fox is better than K'Andre Miller, who they have in their defense corps. The one thing they can bank on is Igor Shesterkin being a productive number one goalie because he was pretty awful last season. and a big part of why they had such a colossal season, just epic failure of a season in New York. And he has the potential to be a number one, a top 5 goalie. He's won a Vezina Trophy. He's awesome. At his best, he's in the Vasilevsky, he's in the Hellebuck range when he's right. Will this team play great defensively in front of him? Braden Schneider, not a great defenseman. Adam Fox, please. Calvin DeHaan, slow. Borgen, yes. Soucy doesn't really play enough. That's been his problem. I like him, but he doesn't play a lot. Gavrikov will defend. That's what he does best. My point here, do they have upside to be a playoff team, and does being in the Metro help them achieve that goal? Absolutely. And there could be one of the next 3 teams that have a horrible season after being good the year before. And I think there's one team in particular that has a better chance than the other 2 of being that team. And a team like New York could take advantage of that fact. I think Columbus could also take advantage of that fact. But I'm not, if it's like, hey, we're buying stock in the Rangers, I'm not. I'm selling, I'm getting off of it. If it's the Titanic, I am, being selfish. I'm kicking Jack off so I can live and, LOL, I know what I just did there, and saying, get off the raft, I want to live, you die. Stupid movie, by the way. I'm not buying New York, though. The one team that I look at and go, New York, saying, okay, that this team's going to regress. They had an awesome season. They almost won the President's Trophy. They won this division. What a season. The Washington Capitals. I mean, what a season. Nobody had them winning the division. Ovi broke his leg and yet still broke the goal record in the same season. He's the best Russian. He's the best goal scorer of all time. He's an icon. He's 40 years old, and he's in the last year of his contract. I think this is his last year playing in North America. He may play in Russia, in the K. I think this is it for Ovi playing in the NHL. First ballot Hall of Famer, all-time great, best goal scorer of all time. Not disputed. No dispute. He's the best. In saying that, he's 40 years old. And he's set every record. He's won a Stanley Cup. He can't go to the Olympics because of the stupid rule. So what is he playing for anymore is my question. He loves the game. We know that. But is this team good enough to remain in the mix, to remain a playoff team? You got Ovi. Tom Wilson, great year, still a really good player. Ryan Leonard will get his first full season as a member of the Washington Capitals coming over from BU. Pierre-Luc Dubois, I thought, was really good. Beauvillier, Connor McMichael, breakout season. Protas, what a season for Protas. Hendrix Lapierre, Nick Dowd, Dylan Strome, still a great player. You had Carlson, Chychrun, who got a fresh 8-year extension. Martin Favre, Matt Roy, Sandin, Trevor Van Riemsdyk. And you still have Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren in between the pipes. You got Thompson, who, looking to be Team Canada starter in the Olympics or make the team, which he should have at the Four Nations. I like Washington still more than I like New York. I think Andrew Crystal is another youngster that could get some playing time for Washington this year. 20 years old, eligible to go to the minors, could be called up at any time. Western Hockey League guy who scored a lot of goals. Washington has some holes. Older group, OV, what does he have left in the tank? I think if you're New York, you're looking at Washington going, can we be better than them? We shall see. I still think Washington is a solid team. I still think Washington is a playoff team. Things can go haywire, injuries come up, but I they're still a good enough team to be a playoff team, to be a competitor in this bad division. Pivot to New Jersey. New Jersey had some additions. They bring in Evgeny Dadonov, comes over from Dallas. Connor Brown signs, leaving the Oilers after getting to back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals. Cody Glass comes over from the Nashville Predators. Still have Nico Hischier, their captain, Jack Hughes, Dawson Mercer, Jesper Bratt, Andre Palat, Timo Meier. So a similar cast of characters. They have not signed Luke Hughes yet, who's a restricted free agent. There's still a couple RFAs out there. Luke Hughes, you got Luke Evangelista in Nashville, who don't have deals a week before the season starting. But New Jersey, they've gotten a little heavier, a little more physical, adding Connor Brown and Dadonov, and a lot of playoff experience. And I think they've been inexperienced over the last couple of years, so I like that from Tom Fitzgerald. They got a young defense. Could see Seamus Casey play, Brendan Dillon, Luke Hughes, Kovacic, Simon Nemec, Brett Pesce. Pesce's experience, Siegenthaler, but a lot of youngsters who are still going to be going through growing pains in the NHL. They re-signed Jake Allen, and have Markstrom, one of the better tandems in the NHL. I still don't think they're a Stanley Cup team. They've always been a playoff team the last couple of years, primarily. Sheldon Keefe, year 2, he had his ups and downs with this team. You could tell he was frustrated at times with certain players on this group. Jack Hughes remaining healthy, a huge deal. Andre Palat being healthy, being consistent, a huge deal. We'll see what happens with those two guys. I think New Jersey is a playoff team. I don't think they can win a Stanley Cup with this group, but I think they can be competitive throughout the year and be a 2 or a 3 seed in the Metropolitan. And that brings us to the team that has gotten to the conference final a number of times, 3 of the last 4 years, have really ruled the Metropolitan Division, and that's the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina, Rob Brendamore, got money, back, happy, healthy. They add K'Andre Miller, a nice addition, in my humble opinion. They re-signed Freddie Anderson to a 1-year deal. They add Nick Ehlers from Winnipeg. He wanted a fresh start. He wanted a new location. He signs on with an already proven, established, good hockey team. Still have Aho, Seth Jarvis, Kotkaniemi, Jordan Stahl, Stan Coven, Hall, Martinook, Robinson. You look at the group and go, it gets thin. But this team is not that thin because they play a different style than 90% of the league. Stahl is still great at what he does. Martinook is still very good. Eric Robinson had a career year. Jack Roslovic, who doesn't have a contract in the NHL, had 18 goals last year on the Carolina Hurricanes. Slavin, Sean Walker, Chatfield, love him. Adding K'Andre Miller. They add another offensive piece to their back end, and you have great insulation with good defensive defensemen like the best defensive defenseman in the world, Jacob Slavin. In saying that, I think Carolina is going to win this division easily. I think Carolina very well could win the President's Trophy. I like this team. I think they can score. I think they're going to play well. I get to playoff time, and I still have the same questions. Kochetkov, Freddie Anderson. I don't want either of them as my number 1 goalie in a series because it's been proven you're not going to win that series. Now, could you get an upgrade? Sure. Could Merzlikins go to Carolina before the playoffs from Columbus? I mean, trading in division is is risky, but I've seen crazier things. Rob Brendamore is one of, if not the best coach in the NHL. He will get the most out of this roster. I think they have a good team. I think Ehlers will fit with him, Jarvis, Aho, Tyson Yost, Stankoven. This team can play fast and physical. They can move the puck. I like Carolina. Do I trust them in the playoffs to win the first 2 rounds? They are awesome because they can beat this division. They face Florida and they get mollywopped, typically. That very well could happen again. I like their offseason. I like their moves. Getting Keandre Miller from New York, to me, is a good move. I'll take that risk to add a good player with talent onto this team. Nick Ehlers, the best free agent available. You got him. Would have been better to get some, but everybody stayed. Florida kept all their guys. They got who was available. Nick Ehlers is a good player. Injury risk, yes. But he can score 25, 30 goals. He's going to get you 65, 70 points. And he's been on a good Winnipeg team. So he knows he wants to win. He wants to compete. I like it. I like Carolina. Okay. Let's move to the Atlantic Division. This division's more difficult because I think there's 4 or 5 good teams in this conference. The bottom 3 are easier to weed out for sure. For a long time, the Boston Bruins were a perennial playoff team, a perennial power. But last year, they traded Brandon Carlo to the Toronto Maple Leafs. They traded Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers. Patrice Bergeron is gone. Signings like Elias Lindholm, Pavel Zacha to a certain extent, Hampus Lindholm have been failures. And Boston's in this new world where I think they're trying to convince themselves that they are a competitive team in a very deep and talented Atlantic Division. But we'll see. You know, they add Michael Eyssimont, who I like a lot from Tampa, to their bottom 6. Sean Corrali comes back. Fraser Minton they got in the Carlo deal. We'll see if he can start from beginning of the year with the team. Casey Middlestat comes over in the Coyle deal. Arvidsson they got as a salary dump with Edmonton for a 5th rounder. Up front, other than David Pastrnak, who's a top 10 player in the league, it's thin. Morgan Geekie had a career year. Does he do it again? I have my doubts. Arvidsson has had a lot of injuries. Looks like he's slowing down. Was really a bad contract for the Oilers. They admitted that it was just a bad contract and he didn't produce. Middlestat, I've liked him at times. Other times I go, where are you on the ice? What productivity you're bringing? Fraser Minton, I hope the best for him. Lindholm looks spent, but you never know. Boston, to me, Swayman and Korpisalo could keep them competitive. Swayman can be one of the better goalies in the league, but to me, there's not a chance in hell Boston makes the playoffs in this division because there are 4 or 5 teams better. I think Boston's a bottom 3 team in the Atlantic. They could be frisky, maybe, in the Metro, but they're just not a great team, and this happens. They're rebuilding. They need to get some drafting, and for once, they need to draft well because they really didn't do it all that effectively the last 4 or 5 years. They took the kid from the U.S., that college kid that I like. We'll see. Cole Eiserman, great goal scorer. He could be the few, but Fabian Lysell has been a pick that's looking like it's going to be a bust. So they need some things to go well for them. But it's not going to be Boston's year. They're going to miss the playoffs for the second consecutive year. The Detroit Red Wings. Detroit, Steve Yzerman has got to have something on the owner, on the mayor of I don't know. Because there's no way that somebody should be able to keep a job this long doing it this poorly. Steve Yzerman's been a shit GM for the Detroit Red Wings, and there's no other way around it. He hasn't built a good team. He hasn't put a good product on the ice. And the teams that he built and just the way that he's put them out there have made zero sense to me. He's allergic to finding a superstar. It's a fucking disease for him. And he has basically never made it a priority to find a goaltender that's worth a pot to piss in. It's always every year, Detroit, maybe this is the year they turn it around. No, it's not going to be this year. Like it wasn't last year, like it wasn't the year ago. He's been there 6-7 years. They've never made the playoffs. They made it 22 years. They haven't made the playoffs for 9 years in a row. They had Mason Appleton from Winnipeg. Yeah, good bottom six player. Bring back Pat Kane. Sign JVR. Okay. Moved out Peter Mrazek. Got rid of Tarasenko. Well, that contract made no sense. Bring over John Gibson from Anaheim. Okay. I like Marco Kasper. Austrian kid. Think he can be a good player. Mo Seider, I like him a lot. We've talked about it. But you see Seider and you see Sandin Pellikka, who could play this year. Young kid from Sweden. But he's young, but he could play. Outside of that, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Ben Sherratt, Simon Edvinsson, jury's still out, kind of like him. Eric Gustafsson, Travis Hamonic, Justin Hull. That's their defense. Is this a decade ago? Maybe that defense would be serviceable. Hamonic on a team. Ottawa played Detroit like 4 times a year. Did you not watch Travis Hamonic? The fact that he's only 35 is crazy. 59 games last year. Shout out to my parents, who's a minus 16. That's not very good. That's not the whole measurement, but he was slow when he played for the Islanders. He hasn't played for the Islanders since 2017. This team has no identity. They're going nowhere. They're not a playoff team. They're probably worse than Boston. They might be better than the next team we talk about, but not by much. Boo. Detroit. Boo. Their plan. They stink. Enough of them. Okay, quickly, Buffalo Sabres. Another year for Buffalo. 14 straight years. No playoffs. It's going to be 15. Breaking news. They got some players I like. Say that. Yuri Kulich, that can be a player for them, was decent in his rookie campaign. Josh Norris, they got the deal for Dylan Cousins. I don't mind that swap. Tage Thompson's a superstar. Zach Benson, solid player, like him. Zucker had a surprisingly pretty good season. Greenway, Alex Tuck, final year of his deal. Does he stay in Buffalo? Probably not. Darlene, Owen Power, added Timmins. Bring over Kesselring from Utah. Bo Byram. And they have a 4 goaltending pattern. Alex Lyon, Georgiev, Devin Levi, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So a 4-pack of goalies. And when you have 4 goalies, you know what that means? You don't have one. I'd love for them to be better. Maybe they have a year and they end up better than Boston. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in that, though. They could be better than Detroit because I'll watch more Buffalo games than Detroit for sure because I do have a soft spot for Buffalo, and every year I pick a bad team that I like to follow the whole year, and it might be Buffalo, just because there's something about them. But Buffalo, Detroit, Boston are at the bottom of the Atlantic, and I don't think they get out of it this year anyway. Still got some work to do. The next 5 teams, to me, all could be playoff teams. 3 via just the 1, 2, 3 in the division, and possibly 2 others could be wildcard teams. Let's start with a playoff team last year, the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal, probably the most surprising team in the league, but they made it work. Marty St. Louis has proven to be a better coach than I expected. Lane Hudson had an awesome rookie campaign. Nick Suzuki is, to me, a leader personified. Cole Caulfield, great year. They had an awesome third line, and they battled. And through a playoff year, having productivity, they trade 2 first-round picks and Emil Heineman, and they add Noah Dobson and then sign him to a 7-year deal worth $9 million per. I like it because Noah Dobson's a proven player that can be on your power play, that can move the puck, and he's never really played in a truly competitive environment, and he gets a fresh start in Montreal, leaving Long Island. And maybe he can grow a beard now. But you have Dobson and Hudson, who are both incredibly unique, great puck carriers, great offensive defensemen. Alexander Vacatier, who they got from Nashville, was quietly awesome for them. Caden Gooley, when healthy, is kind of a jack of all trades. Mike Matheson can still play. Arbor Jackeye, I like him. I think he should play more than what they play him. I like that defense. Up front, they get Zach Bolduc from Minnesota and from St. Louis, in a trade for Logan Mailloux. Kirby Dach, 5th time's the charm. Can the kid stay healthy? Missed almost all of last year. This seems like if it doesn't go well this year, it very well could be semisonic. It could be closing time for Kirby Dach. Has been injured. It started with the World Juniors. It's persisted through the pro ranks. I wish him the best. We'll see. Jake Evans, love him. New hook, product. Suzuki has said he's awesome. They add Joe Veleno, Sammy Blais, another physical kid, French kid, Slavkovsky, Josh Anderson, Gallagher were, one of the better third lines in hockey. Line A, we'll see. And then you have Ivan Demidov, who's getting lots of praise. Will it be, justified? Remains to be seen. But they got high hopes from Montreal. And they bring back, Montembeault, who was awesome for them last year, was huge down the stretch. Montreal, to me, a playoff team last year, and they're a better team going into this year with a lot of guys with the potential to have better seasons. Suzuki may never score 100 points. I think he can be 85, 90 routinely and play both ways and do it efficiently. Demidov could be great. Maybe Line A puts his gear on and puts 30 goals in the back of the net this year. Caulfield, 40+. Dobson and Hudson both get 60+ points on the back end, and Montreal ends up having one of the better power plays in hockey. Not on the ice at the same time. We'll see. I like Montreal's roster. They got better. Okay, let's go to Ottawa. Playoff team last year. Took Toronto to 6 games. Added Jordan Spence from the Los Angeles Kings. Lars Eller joins the club, veteran presence. They get Arthur Kaliev, who was with Los Angeles, then was with the Rangers, now he's with the Sens. Dylan Cousins, first full year there. Ridley Gregg, I like him a lot. Shane Pinto, if you look at it, Pinto, Gregg, Giroux can still take draws. Stützle, Brady Tkachuk. They got a good team. Sanderson, Shabbat, Tyler Clevin, love him. Jensen, Artem Zub, Carter Yamachuk, who couldn't make the team out of camp. Linus Ullmark, who's won a Vezina. Ottawa this year, they were a wildcard team. They could be a 1-2-3 this year for me. I still keep them slightly ahead of Montreal a little bit. I do think they're close. However, I think both teams are good. Both teams are competitive. Both teams, I think, will be playoff teams for me. But Ottawa, they're grinders. Physical, not afraid to mix it up. And I like Travis Green. I like the cut of their jib. They can't just you can't fall off. You had all that success. Continue to build on it. Continue to be productive as you move forward here as a team. Tampa Bay. Trade Ike Howard to Edmonton. You get Sam O'Reilly in return, youngster from the London Knights. It's a very similar group. They added Pontus Holmberg, who left Toronto. So they get Pontus Holmberg. They get, it's really Yanni Gord, big contract. Sorelli back, Geeky, Jake Gensel, Braden Point, Hagel, Nick Paul, Jakob Peltier comes over, so he's a new addition. Kucherov, Vasilevsky, Jonas Johansson, Darren Radish, JJ Moser, Ryan McDonough, Lilberg, Hedman, Chernak. All those players were on Tampa last year. So there's nothing really new to break down. Competitive team. Kucherov's still one of the best players in the sport. Vasilevsky's going to play 60 games a year. Very few goalies do that anymore. It's a luxury. Braden Point and Jake Gensel can score 40 goals each. Sorelli's one of the better two-way centers in hockey. Even at Hedman's age, he was one of the best defensemen in the league last year. Chernak, hopefully he can stay healthy. He's great. I'd love to see them add another defenseman. Very hard to do. Teams don't like to part with them. But I think it hurts them more than anything. It was their strength and why they won. I think it's the biggest reason why they don't win anymore, why they go out in the first round routinely. Tampa, still a very good team. My thing this year, do they stay ahead of the Ottawas, of the Montreals? Still a playoff team, still very good. I don't worry about them. They're there. Let's go to Toronto. Toronto. Biggest thing for Toronto, Mitch Marner is in Las Vegas, and Brandon Shanahan is unemployed. And those two things may go hand in hand. Brandon Shanahan was the overseer of every contract Mitch Marner got in Toronto. And maybe Marner would have left even if Shanahan stayed or was given a contract renewal, but he didn't, and Marner left following the Game 7 loss to Florida last May. Toronto mentioned they added Nick Waugh in a deal for Marner. They added Dakota Joshua in a trade with the Vancouver Canucks. I like both deals. They have a lot of depth going into this year, a lot of guys that could be productive. You look at Matt Benning on the back end, Phil Myers, they have more NHL defensemen than they do have spots, which is actually a good thing. I think for this year for Toronto, for a decade, it was about core four and the best players being the best players. And that will still always remain a narrative. However, Toronto on paper is not as good as they were at this time last year. And if anybody tells you that they are, they have just a real hatred for Mitch Marner and will forget the fact that he's a 100-point player and he's one of the best just overall defensive forwards in the league. And that's not up for debate, in my humble opinion. But Toronto is going to be more of a balanced attack if they are going to be successful. Like Tampa, like the next team we're going to talk about, I don't worry about Toronto missing the playoffs. I've heard some people make that argument. I'm not one of them. Their team is heavier than it was last year. I think it's more playoff ready. Will it have more rough spots in the regular season? Perhaps. They gave Stolarz a 4-year contract with a $3.5 million. Really good deal. But a fair deal for a guy that's only started 34 games as a career high as of last year, and he's 32 with knee problems. Joe Wall away from the team, personal reasons. So now it's either Stolarz and Reimer or Stolarz and Dennis Hildeby. But for Toronto, it's guys like Nick Waugh, Dakota Joshua, Max Domi. Can Scott Laughton find his place? Steven Lorentz, Bobby McMahon. They re-signed John Tavares. I'm not going to rehash that opinion. I wouldn't have done it. Matthew Nye is great. They got Matthias Michelli from the Utah Hockey Club. And then you have Easton Cowan, who was great, won a Memorial Cup last year. The way the lineup's shaking out, it sure looks like he's going to make the team out of training camp playing on the fourth line with Lorentz and Scott Laughton, which is fine because I think that's a good line that can actually produce more offensively than you might think. But they're going to need every line to produce. They're going to need productivity down the lineup. And like I said, Toronto's got a lot of NHL body. Yarncroke, David Camp, Little Nick Robertson. These guys could be extras. They could be on waivers, could be claimed as of Sunday morning after their final preseason game. Matt Benning, Phil Myers. I mean, you got Riley, Tanev, McCabe, Ekman Larson, Carlo, Benoit. Those 6 guys are playing, if healthy. Meaning Matt Benning and Phil Myers. Matt Benning's played, 200 games in the NHL. Benning or Phil are going to the Marlies. Maybe both if you don't want to keep extra roster players. So they have tough decisions to make. They also have Ben Danford, a draft pick who they like a lot. Maybe he cracks. I don't think so. I'd put him in the minors if you're not going to play him. But Toronto's going to defend well. I do think they have good goaltending. And Ben Danford, who's 19, 20 in February, it looks like he's going to make the team. More and more, I just read an article right now. Maybe he makes the team. Who knows? Maybe they give him a look. But they got a lot of NHL defensemen. They're going to defend well. Morgan Riley's in the best shape of his life, people are saying. Everybody is this time of year. But we'll see what happens there. But Toronto is a different team. Doesn't mean they're worse over time. Are they worse on paper? Yes. But time will tell what this team can do, how they produce, how they look over time. But to me, they're far more interesting to watch this year than they have been in previous years. Far more. They haven't been in previous. I get Leafs fans, you're always excited to watch your team. If you're agnostic about the Maple Leafs, they weren't that interesting and they weren't that fun to watch. Just one man's opinion. And that brings us to the champs, the two-time Cup champs consecutively, the team that's been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, the Florida Panthers. Florida got brutal news last week when they learned that Sasha Barkov tore his ACL and MCL at practice. He's out 7 to 9 months. 7 months is April. meaning 9 months is June. If it's a 9th-month injury, he misses the entirety of the season, including the playoffs. It could mean that they could add somebody like a Sidney Crosby, like a Evgeny Malkin. Wouldn't rule it out. But it also means they're without their captain. They're without, the best defensive forward in the league. And they're also without Matthew Tkachuk until January. Now, the sky is not falling in Florida. Does it hurt their team a ton? Without question. However, without Barkov, you look at if they want to do it this way, and they can if they want, you can go Reinhart, Bennett, Lundell down the middle of the ice. That's your top 3 center. That's pretty damn. Lundell can be a 2C because I think the kid's underrated and he's a competitor and he's one of the better penalty killers in the league. He's good. So the sky's not – it was going to be a difficult season anyway. Regular season, they didn't give a shit about the regular season last year. They started every playoff round on the road. They won the Stanley Cup. So if they finish third, if they finish in a wild card spot, I don't think they're sweating. I don't think they care if they start the playoffs against anybody. Because they have faith that they can win. And if they know Sasha Barkov's not going to come back, I know Bill Zito, he will add something to this roster to make it competitive. They kept Marchand. They kept Bennett. They kept Ekblad. It's incredible. Bobrovsky, last year of his contract, 37 years old. They're trying to go to 4 straight Stanley Cup finals. Tampa couldn't do it. It's extremely difficult to do. But even without Barkov, I really like their team. They kept Evan Rodriguez. They have Verhaeghe. They have Gadjevich, AJ Greer, Luosterainen, Lundell, Reinhart, Bennett, Brad Marchand, Ekblad, Mikkola, Seth Jones, Gustav Forsling, Tobias Bjornfoot. They still got a good team. They lose Nate Schmidt. They lose Vanacek. Okay. Is it going to be more difficult than we expected? 100%. And there's a really tough division. I think Ottawa, I think Montreal are going to take more points off Toronto's, Florida's, Tampa's of the world than they have in previous years because I think those teams are good. They're competitive. They're better than they have been in years past. Very competitive division. Next Tuesday night, I'll talk about where I have these teams placing, where I have them finishing in the division. And my playoff teams for the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. We'll talk about that 7 o'clock next Tuesday. We got baseball. We had baseball today and tonight. Detroit Tigers took Game 1 in Cleveland. The best pitcher in baseball, Tarek Skubal, went 7 2/3, 107 pitches, 1 earned, 14 Ks. What a performance from the workhorse. Tigers take a 1-0 series lead in the wild card. You had the Cubs beat the Padres 3-1. Earlier this afternoon, 2 solo home runs by the Cubs. Tatis, Machado, 0 combined hits. Their best players got nothing done. Cubs bullpen went 4 2/3, 0 earned. Was great. And you got Yankees, Red Sox right now. You got Reds, Dodgers later tonight. Yankees currently lead 1-0, bottom of the 5th. Anthony Volpe, solo home run. Garrett Crochet, Max Fried, both pitching extremely well. I had Red Sox, Tigers, I had Padres, and the Dodgers. We'll see how many I get right. Blue Jays get the winner of the Yankees and the Red Sox. We'll talk more baseball Thursday. We also had a bunch of news. San Francisco fired Bob Melvin after 2 seasons, 81-81 record over his time there. Texas Rangers fired Bruce Bochy After 3 seasons, the 4-time World Series, 3 in San Francisco, 1 in Texas. They offered a front office role, but at the same time, San Francisco just fired Bob Melvin. Maybe a reunion could happen where he won 3 World Series. Minnesota Twins fired Rocco Baldelli, their manager, after 7 seasons. They missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. They tanked. They traded everybody off that roster. They're going through a rebuild. It's probably going to be bleak there in Minnesota for a while, low payroll. Angels also fired Ron Washington and interim manager Ray Montgomery. So the Angels looking for a new bench boss. And the Mets announced that Carlos Mendoza will stay as manager for next year after their epic collapse, going 38-55 over the last 93 games, having the second largest payroll in baseball at $379 million. Big show tonight. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you all for the support. We will be back on Thursday to preview Week 4 in the NFL, to recap some baseball, and to also look ahead to UFC 320 this weekend in Las Vegas. Until then, take care, everybody. I'm your host, Noah Warren, and this is the Live and Learn Podcast.